Let's officially get started. So, hi again, everyone. Welcome to One Board, a new way to build with blues. Yes, we have been purposefully vague about the product behind the proverbial curtain today, but rest assured, it is something that many of you have been asking for and something that brings me great joy to use quite literally on a daily basis. Now, before we get started, if you have any questions during the presentation today, please ask them using the Q&A panel that you have in your Zoom UI down there. TJ and I will both answer those questions as they come up. But just to get ahead of the most common question, is it being recorded? If you've been here before, I'm going to say yes, it is being recorded. It'll be available on the Blues YouTube channel at this URL. While you're there, feel free to subscribe to the channel as well. Now, nothing fancy today in terms of our speakers. It is just TJ and I. If you haven't met us yet, TJ Van Tol is our principal developer advocate here at Blues. And my name is Rob Lauer, and I'm Senior Director of Developer Relations. If you haven't yet, feel free to look us up on LinkedIn, which has kind of become our de facto social media platform these days. But again, today we expect to be with you for no more than about 30 minutes or so. We're keeping it pretty short today because our agenda is very neat and concise. With you as my captive audience, I'm going to take advantage of your presence to make sure you are doubly aware of some new NoteHub features that we have released. It'll be very quick, I promise, but very important. Number two, interest in satellite connectivity in the IoT is booming. We saw this when we were at CES a couple weeks ago, and I've got a couple new satellite products from Blues to tease out as well. So another kind of little mini product announcement. And then, of course, we'll get to the topic of today's presentation. So let's just get started right away with this quick rundown of what is relatively new in NoteHub. And I want to start with smart fleets. Admittedly, smart fleets have been with us for a while, but they are such a powerful feature. I really couldn't help but talk about them again. These are named fleets that let you automatically group devices based on ingested data values, strictly using JSON expressions. So you can tell devices to automatically join or leave a fleet or don't do anything at all based on inbound sensor readings or other data values that you're collecting. It's really such a useful feature. If you haven't tried them yet, I highly recommend checking them out. Next up are watchdog events. If you are probably familiar with watchdog timers on your host MCU, this is the same concept. So at an interval that you specify, a watchdog note, an event will be generated on NoteHub should a device go silent for that time period. So this is fantastic for identifying potentially problematic devices in the field, right, that haven't responded in a set amount of time. So you can set up programmatic alerts like over email or Slack or whatever you want to do. Next up are personal access tokens. So these provide a new way of managing auth for NoteHub API calls. You can now manage expiration dates of tokens, create up to 10 of them per user. This is going to replace our old OAuth bearer token method. So kind of a modernization for our NoteHub APIs. Another very widely used feature of NoteHub is the ability to update both Notecard and host microcontroller firmware over the air. So just so you know, we have released a revamped UI to handle this, and we now separate notes versus metadata. It just helps provide a less ambiguous way of identifying updates. We've also reinstated some older Notecard LTS releases as well to make it easier to, if you're on an old LTS release, to keep using a consistent version. Now, arguably, my favorite feature that we've recently released is the ability to test your JSON transforms for routing data before they're actually deployed. So you can test any event with any route, but you're not actually routing anything or performing any destructive actions on the data itself. It's really just a way to validate that an expression that you're writing is going to transform your JSON payload into the right structure. Now, if anyone out there is a Snowflake user, you probably know about Snowpipe and Snowpipe streaming. So this is a low latency streaming option that lets Snowflake ingest a lot of data on a very rapid cadence. So this is critical for you who are like emitting a lot of data, so high frequency event management effectively. It's a great option. I've used it myself. Do want to let you know that the existing Snowflake route is going to be deprecated at some point. So if you're using that one, you'll want to migrate over at your convenience. Now, lastly, with NoteHub, we know that tracking your data and event usage is super critical. So we've made it easier to track cellular data usage within the NoteHub UI, along with event usage as well. And we've also just added kind of a rudimentary, but a key way of keeping an eye on your star note, so your satellite data as well. And you're going to see improvements to these reports in the near future. So that's a quick rundown of new NoteHub features. Just had to take advantage of your presence here to do that. But speaking of satellite, let's talk about some new satellite products from Blues that are going to be coming out in 2026. Now, if you are new to Blues, you might not know that we launched StarNote for Skylo about a year ago, year and a half ago. So what this product is, it's a companion satellite failover device for the note card, meaning you pair it with an existing cell or Wi-Fi note card. It does use Skylo's satellite constellation. Now, it's been a great product, but we're going to make it even better because in the coming months, we're going to be releasing a new all-in-one note card for Skylo. So this literally gives you cellular, Wi-Fi, and satellite NTN connectivity on a single note card device. Again, this is using Skylo's network or Skylo's constellation. I've personally been using this device for a few weeks now, and I love it. Love the compact design of it because I can pop it into basically any of our note carriers as well. So it's a nice little compact form factor. A little while after that release, what's even more exciting for us is that we're going to be launching StarNote for Iridium, pun intended there, I guess. It's going to give you truly global satellite connectivity for your note card powered product using Iridium's global constellation. Like StarNote for Skylo, StarNote for Iridium. Oh, TJ's got one right there. It's going to
Yeah,
be,
won't focus, but I have one.
we assure you, um, like StarNote for Skylo, this is going to be a note card companion device, meaning that you're going to pair it with another note card. But still super exciting stuff. We're going to keep you all posted on this release dates and everything in the coming weeks and months. Okay, time for the feature presentation. So let me start by going back to this existential question of why Blues even exists. I would argue that we are here to help simplify your product design. We are all about helping developers reduce the complexity of both their hardware and cloud development. And, we want to help you accelerate your prototype. And yes, you can definitely argue that I just restated the same claim three different ways, but this is just to drill home the point that Blues is really here to speed things up, make things easier for you. To that end, what is one of the most common questions I get from developers? It's this one. There is an STM32 that's on the note card. Why can't I program it directly? Why can't I have a nice compact all-in-one device that just does everything? Well, I've got bad news for you. This is not going to happen for a variety of technical and security reasons. But I think we have done the next best thing. And I'd like to introduce you to the brand new Notecarrier CX. So this board combines the capabilities and similar form factor of a Notecarrier X with an onboard STM32L433 host microcontroller in one small package. It is compatible with all of our note cards. This initial release today is technically classified as a beta, mainly to reflect our ridiculously high bar for hardware quality. If you can see on the serigraphy there on the board, we're releasing 1.3 today, which is what I've been using extensively, and they've been rock solid in real world use for me. We have since the release of this one, we have identified a very small number of very minor issues that we are already addressing in the next revision. But just because I need to be super straightforward with you all, the issues are fully documented in the datasheet errata, but at a very high level quickly, it's things like the MISO and MOSI silkscreen labels are swapped. Not a big deal. There's also a minor issue that prevents the card.voltage and card.carrier APIs from reporting voltage and charging status. So very minor stuff, but just want you to be fully informed. But what is on board? So our own Blues Signet is on board. Not literally the feather that you see here, of course, but rather the same STM32L433 with that 80 megahertz Cortex M4, a good amount of flash storage and RAM, and most importantly, a very low power design. And when I say small, I mean pretty small. It measures 76 by 38 millimeters, It's got castellated edges as well, which makes it suitable for solder down usage in production designs. So we kind of talk about it using in prototype designs, but the fact that you can solder it down makes it really attractive for more scaled production use. A unique feature of the Notecarrier CX, there's a little dip switch towards the bottom next to the USB port that lets you decide whether the USB is connected to the note card or the host. Plenty of features on board as well. Some of which you can see here. We've got a quick port, USB-C, of course. There's a programmable user button at the top center there. There's dual headers, of course, that break out host and note card pins. JST port at the top for connecting a battery, external SIM card if you need that, and so on. Needless to say, I am personally super excited about this product. Really look forward to seeing what people build with it. And the price, it's actually $17.50. It's available right now at shop.blues.com. If we don't sell out our first run today, I will be very disappointed. But we will also be introducing a new starter kit that features the CX. So it'll come with a note card. It'll be in the next month or two, so keep an eye out for that. But we're trying to keep the price very, very low, help it just make it something that's easy to get started and start building your prototype with. With that, let's see this little guy in action. So TJ, I'll let you take over.
Yeah, so I'm going to bring up my screen here and I want to demo this board to show you what it looks like. But I will be honest with you up front. If you are familiar with Notecard, if you are familiar with Signet, this isn't the world's most exciting demo because really the value proposition here is that they are all together and they work together. But from a functionality standpoint, they work exactly like a Notecard and a Signet do today. So the CX itself, I've got one up on the screen so I can show it a little bit bigger. I've also got one connected through USB on my desk here that I'll be using to drive this. And I have this dip switch that Rob talked about earlier. I have mine set to no card. And so because of that, that means if I use a terminal, a serial emulator, like our in-browser terminal here, I can connect to my no card as if it were just any other no carrier. Provides the exact same functionality there. But what I can also do, because there is a Signet on board, is I can take this dip switch and pivot it over to host. This is probably the hardest part because I hate my hands are not great at making small changes. So I'll switch the dip switch over. I'll plug this back in. And then if I want to write firmware for this guy, I've got a very simple firmware program up here. This is similar to our sensor tutorial if you've went through the basics of using a note card and Signet before, where I'm just applying some basic configuration to my note card. And then in my loop, I'm taking a temperature reading from a temperature sensor I've got connected to the Signet. I'm queuing it up on the note card. I'm syncing it, and then I'm taking another reading every 30 seconds. Now, to flash firmware onto the Signet, onto the CX, it works like any other Signet. I can either use the reset and boot buttons on the CX to put my Signet into bootloader mode, or this thing also has JTAG headers on it as well. So I can use a debugging probe like the ST Link that we sell in our shop as well. If you haven't used one of these before, it's a great way to flash. It just makes it easier to flash firmware onto ST-based microcontrollers like the Signet. And so with that done, I can actually just take this firmware and upload it directly and push it out to my device. And then the other thing I could do is because I switched that dip switch over to communicating with the host, I can bring up my serial monitor and I probably have to reset it to see new data coming in. I can access the serial logs directly from the Signet. Now, what's cool here is just that this all basically just seamlessly works. So I have all the wiring in place. My Signet knows how to talk to my note card over I2C. I have all the other note carrier conveniences. I have a quick port for sensors. I've got the USB port. I've got a LiPo battery port. I've got the pins exposed from both the Signet and the note card if I needed to tie into those for whatever reason, for whatever it is I'm prototyping. It really all is just in one package. The other cool thing, and the last thing I'll show here, is that Note Card Outboard Firmware Update, our approach to handling host firmware updates, also support for that is also built into this board as well. So I've got the necessary config to make that happen here in my firmware. I set up card.dfu appropriately. I've got my DFU status where I've got metadata about my project in here. And so the last thing I'll show real quick is we'll just do a quick firmware update so you can see what that looks like. Although, again, it's not going to be any different than firmware updates if you've done them before with Blues, but for some of you, this is probably your first time seeing this. So I'll go into my device. I can go to the firmware tab, and here I can view the host firmware and the note card firmware that are currently running on my device. So you can see for my host firmware, I have version 1. And if I update, I've already queued up a second binary here with a version bump that I'm going to apply. And then what I'm going to do is go back to my note card and I'm going to flip the dip switch again because I want to do a hub.sync on this guy so I can pull down the update as quickly as possible. So I'll come back in here. I'll connect to my device. I'll do a hub.sync. And by the way, if you've never seen it before, there are some shorthands that are built into our in-browser terminal. So if you type requests like this very often, if you want to avoid having to type up like the full JSON for this, there are a few shorthands. So pro tip if you are a heavy user of the terminal. And what this is going to do is it's going to perform a cellular connection. It's going to detect that there's a sync of this new firmware, and it's going to apply it. And this whole process will probably take about a minute. So, Rob, do we have any questions that came in while we're watching the firmware update go to
No,
town here?
I was just going to say so somebody mentioned that we had an out of stock message already, and so I was furiously working with our operations people to make sure that we corrected that.
You
But it's back up now, so should be able to order again.
or your pitch was just too good. You're moving
Right.
too many CXs, Rob. So it's pushing out the firmware update here, but again, really this is the whole demo. It's not like there's any thing revolutionary here from a functionality perspective. The cool thing is it's just one very compact, nice board that has all of this in one place. And when this finishes here in a second, really the last thing I just want to verify is that it applies it correctly and it reports it to NoteHub correctly, just so you can see the full process run end to end. And it looks like it just finished. There, oh, we need better buttons to scroll lock this thing. But it
Um,
got the updated version. And what I should be able to do is see, yep, bumped up the version. So again, this is just how No Card Outboard Firmware Update works. But on the CX, it's just all in one package. Everything is all wired together, so you can do it just really simply, I guess. And
yeah.
that's really all I wanted to show off.
Some questions are trickling in here. Somebody's asking about Circuit Python support. This was a real bummer for us. We worked hard on a Circuit Python port for Signet, and we technically made it work, but we had to eliminate so many features that it became effectively unusable. And we just decided not to even provide support for it. So CircuitPython is not supported on the Signet or the CX. Um, and a question about we do have a data sheet, and yes, it does work with STM Cube ID and Arduino IDE as well. And I think we have tutorials for those. Basically, any of the tutorials that you see for Blue Signet on our developer site are going to work with the CX because it's really the same microcontroller. And somebody's asking about a data sheet link, and let me just get that for you really quickly. Here is the data sheet link, and there's one other question here. Oh, about the Iridium product, the price target for that. No, we don't have an announced price yet. However, I do know if you've done any work with Iridium, you'll know that their hardware is not cheap. The one big differentiator for us from other kind of resellers of Iridium are that we're going to stick to our prepaid model. So we are going to provide bundled data. We're in fact, I think, don't quote me on this, but I think we are the only Iridium reseller who's going to not require a monthly fee or anything like that. So it's going to be the same model that we use with Scylla, just with Iridium, but it will be more, the hardware is going to be more expensive. We know that.
There was
Um,
a question from Eddie about the MCP support for the CX. And yes, because there's really the CX is just using a signet and the MCP. If you're not familiar, for people that aren't familiar with MCP, we have a Blues Expert MCP, which is basically a tool you can plug into large language models. So if you just do a search for Blues Expert on our docs, you can check that out. And since this is just using the same signet, Blues Expert does know about it and how to work with it.
Somebody's asking about a timeline for the Iridium product. We have a beta program out now, so I think we sent out like 10 devices to some of our existing customers. So that is ongoing right now. I think our plan is this is another one of those don't quote me. I think we're targeting H1 to have a release ready, so it's in the coming months. And again, prices and data rates similar to Skylo. Um, I don't know yet. It's too early for us to know for sure. So I don't want to set any expectations there. Um,
There was a question earlier about the Seger J-Link debug probes and whether those work. I don't know. I'm not familiar with those. I don't know if they work with the ST ecosystem or not. In general, this would be a good time to mention too, if you're watching this afterwards, the recording, or if you have any other questions, our community forum is a great place to ask those. Rob and I are going to be the first ones to see it there anyways. So if there's something we can't answer, if you have any other questions, that would be a great place to drop questions like that.
um, yeah, there's a question that came in to us. How many satellites are in the Skylo constellation? It's a great thing to look at. If you go to skylo.tech, that's their website, and you can see their coverage maps and more information about their constellations. And somebody just mentioned CX is showing out of stock. Is it really? It is not really. I think we keep hitting a um, some kind of threshold on our online store. I don't know how this works behind the scenes. So if you okay, reload now, it's available again. And yeah, I'm on Slack here to my left trying to message our ops people to make sure this doesn't happen again. So great. I promised under a half hour. I think we hit it there. Like TJ mentioned, any other questions, just hit us up on our forum at discuss.blues.com. Look forward to seeing what you all build with the CX. Thanks again for attending.
Yeah, thanks everybody.